So my father, he won the lottery, and then he just decided to up and disappear. Well, I had my first child not too long ago, and imagine my excitement when we're out celebrating the new life of my baby, when in comes my estranged father. Now I have to explain to my entire extended family what the heck is going on. I've always worked hard for my whole life to get even a little thing for myself. From working odd jobs to managing my own expenses to helping mother out since I was little. I only remember my mom working hard for us and trying to make things work since my dad was nothing but a burden. He never helped out my mom in anything, only cared about himself. My mom was the one who would earn hard just for us and work tirelessly to pay the bills. My sister and I have never seen her take a rest or a day off. She was the breadwinner of the family, and she was the one who would take care of the household task too. Because of my father's bad habits. We are just really tired of him at that point. We would often ask Mom to just leave the man, since it wasn't like he acted like a responsible father for once. He was just existing, but never really actually existed in our lives. He would just sit lazily around the house or hang out with his equally irresponsible buddies. But my mom was never ready for that. They had bought the house together, and Mom had not decided where we would go if we had to sell the house, unless we had enough money to buy a good home for us. We were stuck with him. He wasn't just a selfish person, but let me tell you, he was abusive too. Although it all started with him yelling at Mom for making small mistakes, then throwing things and breaking them, and then finally hitting her. The trauma he gave us with all his behavior could not be healed even in our life. He contributed to bringing nothing to the table except troubles. His company was odd. All troubled people gathered together, and all his friends were absolutely problematic. One was an addict, and others were jobless and useless, just like him. They all would come, sit at home playing and laughing like fools, while we would be forced to serve them. I'm telling you, it was pathetic. Mom had no guts to confront him, so as children, we had no say in it either. As we started to grow up, we started noticing it even more and more, and it started making us mad. My sister and I started doing part-time jobs just when we entered high school. We started doing one job, but then took 2 to 3 jobs at a time, just to make things work, and started helping out Mother. Mom was also weak and malnourished, but she was skipping meals. She hardly had time to take a rest and eat. Then she started working out late and would be burnt out when she would get home. Our father only loved making his own life a bed of roses. He would turn a blind eye to our struggles and keep himself busy with his useless hobbies. He never even batted an eye or cared about us whenever we were having the hard time. It was like he had a life of his own without us. He didn't need us at all. I remember how we would go to school, eating the absolute bare minimum, and then come back home to my father yelling at my mom and demanding money. All we would hear was his loud voice, until he would be giving the money and he would finally shut up, and the routine would just repeat itself. He would just sit around the house playing chess with his friends or other board games, eating snacks and doing nothing, and if their entertainment would get limited because of a shortage of money, he would again just start fussing over it and make our lives hell. He often drank, and then would get hyper over little things. He had a habit of even taking or stealing money from Mother. My mom had to hide her money just to make sure that he wouldn't spend it all buying beer and making sport bets. He would buy lottery tickets, prize bonds, and keep them to himself. He always was optimistic he was going to win it big. Even though we had always thought that our bad days would disappear soon, our troubles never reduced. That one time when my mother fell ill was probably the hardest challenge of it all, as there was no one to earn money for us. Rather than going out and working hard, he would just sit there, watching TV, complaining about her being useless. Mom would lose her temper, and then we would hear her yell, and loud slaps, and he would beat her until he would feel satisfied. He was once charged for it too, but his friends bailed him out, and he didn't change a bit no matter what, just kept continuing with the abuse mentally and physically. The days that he would be outside having fun with his weird friends were the most peaceful days for us. Anyways, we continued helping our mother out, and gradually things got better for us, and we became stable enough to live a healthy life. As far as I remember, it was on a weekend evening that our father dropped the bomb on us. We couldn't believe our ears when he happily yelled and danced around, telling us that one of his old lottery tickets made him win the lottery. It felt surreal. We had a hard time believing he actually won prize money, especially when, well, we heard how big the amount was. It did feel like a dream, but then he proved it true by horrifying us as if it was some nightmare. Just when we thought things were going to finally get great for us, everything went downhill tumbling. My father woke up one day early in the morning, packed his stuff and ran away. When we woke up and couldn't find him in the home, we thought it was some joke. But we didn't hear from him for hours, and it wasn't April Fool's. We got worried sick, but when we entered our father's room, everything that might be considered expensive was gone. Watches, money, of course the lottery tickets. Seeing how everything was at 6s and 7s in his room, it was pretty clear that he took his time to search through his room, making sure every single thing he grabbed was important and nothing was left behind. That was the last time I saw my father. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and we didn't hear from our father. It seemed as if he disappeared into thin air without a trace. His friends weren't aware of his actions and were clueless about where he could have gone. At first, we thought somebody abducted him, to be honest, at the back of our minds. We all knew the truth, but we just weren't ready to accept it yet. We could not just accept that he left us like that. The moment he got the lottery money, he just decided to run away without even caring about us. But it wasn't something unexpected. He loved money, and money only. We didn't look around for him. I was once coming back from work and saw him drinking and having fun with his deranged friends. The hatred I had for him only doubled after that. He deliberately left, so he wouldn't have to be given even a penny to us. That freaking jerk he said he never wanted. I had thought of not telling Mother that I saw his sorry self, but then I heard her talking to a colleague telling her about how her husband left with all the money. But just to add fuel to the fire, he sends his pictures and tries to childishly mock him by pointing out how good of a life he was having after that. My sister and I just decided to avoid even mentioning anything about him like a plague. Mom continued to work, and soon he was forgotten. Or so I thought. Although it took us a painfully long time to forget all the bad memories he gave us, we were happy that we finally got rid of those and started again to focus on our lives. We again started to work. Now that we knew we only had each other, no dad whatsoever, we started to care for each other even more. When we both started getting paid, well, Mom quit. She wasn't able to work anymore because of her health being weak, and she had no reason to. It was 2 years after that we started to settle down in our private lives too. My sister and I both had boyfriends, and they were very serious relationships. And our partners never really got to know about my dad. We were always avoiding of the relatives too, who called us a bunch of mad people because of our dysfunctional family. And our father's reputation made people hate us even more. He would always make the life of our neighbor hell too, and we knew they all wanted us gone. Anyways, Mom had told us that he wasn't worth mentioning. Telling them that he was dead was easier and better, rather than talking about how freaking weird and psychotic he was and what kind of weird environment we had while growing up. Talking about my boyfriend, his name is Liam. I met him at the place we worked, as he was one of those ones that got interested in me. and then asked me out. Heck, because of my father's behavior toward my mother, I'm not gonna lie, it was a big difficulty to see any man who wanted a relationship with me. In a good way. I would always feel scared of them and think they're just playing about. But even though I was such a difficult person, Liam never gave up. He kept courting me unless I was sure about him, and well, he swooned me. He didn't even ask for a relationship. I was head over heels for my boyfriend. We both wanted to spend the rest of our lives together and envisioned a future together with babies. So, slowly as time passed, we started planning to have children. It wasn't rushed, but it surely was a bit unexpected since a lot of people showed concern about our decision. They warned us to make sure it is not something we would start regretting and then make it the reason why our relationship fell to pieces. But Liam and I, we talked about it. We were sure of our decision more than anything. We wanted a family together. We wanted to get married. But Liam's parents were actually the reason why he wasn't getting married. They weren't exactly fond of me. So, we thought a baby might change their mind, right? It might sound inconvenient and not the best decision, but it proved us to be. Well, the day I found out I was pregnant, I was over the moon. I couldn't believe I was having a baby with the love of my life. We informed our parents and close friends about the immediate news, and I still can't believe that Liam's parents' attitude flipped 180 degrees just by hearing that I was expecting a baby. They started pestering us to get married first, but Liam and I decided we didn't need to rush it. We wanted a special memorable wedding ceremony, and what else would be better than having our baby there for it? So it was decided that after our baby would be born, we would start preparing for our wedding. My mom, she couldn't be happier. She was proud of me and blessed me with the best wishes after hearing the news. The 9 months I carried my baby was tough, but it felt like heaven. Everyone was excited to see our baby and couldn't wait for it to happen. They all took great care of me during that time as well. I felt lucky to have all these people in my life. Except for our mom. No one cared for us in any way, so it felt surreal to have so much experience of it all. The moment my baby was born, a wave of happiness shocked me, washed all of my sorrows I had in my life right away. My life felt complete. I looked how happy Liam was holding our baby, and it made me wonder if my father was ever happy when he held us. Because as far as I remember, he always seemed detached, as if he had no connection with us. Well, I felt overwhelmed thinking about all of it. All I could remember is his beatings and him hurting Mother, and us whenever he felt the need to. My father and my mother never loved each other. To this day, I get mad that they just married each other for the sake of their families. My dad's parents were friends with my mom's parents, and that's how the idea popped up in their head, just to get them married off to each other. Throughout the years, my father never liked her. He never accepted her, and though they never divorced, they continued to live as total strangers under the same roof. And this affected not only her, but later the kids too. We were always left feeling that complex of not having a loverly father. Whenever we watched other kids interact with their dads, I just remember one time when my father was drunk as heck, demanding money from Mom and she couldn't give it to him. He had whacked an empty bottle of beer on her head. It was horrific and disturbing, and blood was splattered everywhere. She was taken to the hospital and he was charged with domestic abuse. After a few days, he got out, after paying just a fine. He had a long history of doing such things, but was never given a serious punishment ever. My whole body just burned with hate whenever I imagined him having the best time of his life. Whilst all the time we suffered, he just lived his life so joyfully. And why wouldn't he? He had nothing to lose by continuing to live with us. He was getting fed, having money, a good time sleeping without any tension, and at the very moment he got something even better. which was the winning lottery ticket money. He packed up his things and walked out of our lives, leaving us all alone. I have no idea how my mom coped with that. Not just now, but I'm talking her whole life. It pained me to see her living such a life, so when he finally left, I felt relieved in a way. I was a tiny bit happy for her, that she was finally freed from his hold and she could finally breathe, think about herself without being pushed around by him. It felt great, although it was hard. We were happy, or at least I was. Back to my baby now. I watched my boyfriend play with him, and I knew the way he looked at him was how much he adored and loved our little baby. I was certain that he would not prove to be a father like mine. I knew he wouldn't. His own father was perfect too. His father loved him a lot, and I've seen how Liam interacted with his parents. I was glad that he had a happy, healthy family, unlike the dysfunctional family I went through. That was one of the reasons I felt so secure in his arms, and I didn't feel uncomfortable about having a family with that man. I could see how his parents loved each other and loved him and made him such a great guy. That day was probably the happiest day of my life, as I watched my baby being showered with love and kisses, adored by everybody. I was glad he won't have a childhood like mine. Nevertheless, I was soon discharged from the hospital, and I was ready to start my new life with my baby and my love. I couldn't help but feel joyful seeing everyone loving and caring for my newborn. It was Sasha, my sister, who suddenly got up and suggested the idea that we should welcome the baby home properly, throw a massive party for the baby and the baby's mother. Liam immediately agreed, and although Sasha suggested, well, actually we should do a small party, Liam started preparing a good, big ol' party, where he invited all of his close friends and relatives. The party preparations were done with high spirits, and arrangements were made to throw a perfect party that I knew I would never forget. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're having a great day. So today's story has 4 updates. Update number 1 came out just a little bit after the original post by OP. It's still in preparations for the party that's going to be going on 2 days after update 1. If you're not subscribed to the channel, just know I drop videos every single day. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into update number 1. So, the preparations for the party were going great. It was arranged 2 days after. Liam and Sasha were working hard to make it memorable, although it was already memorable enough to welcome our first baby, and the first baby in the family, that is. From choosing a good venue to picking up a cute baby boy themed decor. It was all perfect. They were going out of the way, spending lots of money, but I wasn't complaining. It was a very special day, and I knew it deserved to be celebrated this way. I remember that I had gotten up early that morning and gotten all dressed up wearing a pretty little dress Liam bought, and then changed my baby's clothes too. Everyone was downstairs waiting for us. We had breakfast together, which my mom and Liam's mom prepared. My mom has always been an easygoing and sweet person, so Liam's parents had gotten along with her pretty well. Liam loved my mom a lot and made sure to always take good care of my family. I really thought my life was going great. Nothing bad could happen now, right? Well, I was proven wrong just a few hours later. We drove to the venue. I was awestruck by the aesthetic and design. Liam and Sasha had clearly worked hard. We started greeting guests and receiving congratulations, and I was busy enjoying my time with my friends and family. Everyone was in smiles, and it was a great vibe overall. Everybody was just having a great time. I was making sure everyone got the cake that we just cut. That's when my feet froze, when my eyes fell none other than on my estranged father, standing near the entrance in all his glory. For a moment, I thought I was just hallucinating, thinking it was impossible for him to be there. How was it possible for a man who has been gone for 3 years to suddenly show up at the congratulatory party of her daughter's newborn? What are the odds of that? It sounded ridiculous, so I shook my head, trying to clear my head, but my thoughts stopped when everyone else started noticing him too. Suddenly, all I could hear were gasps and murmurs. Everyone was in shock and watching him just stand there. So, he really was here. I thought to myself and turned to look at my mom, who had an exasperated expression. She seemed like she would explode with anger anytime soon, so I looked around, noticing how Liam was confused, just staring at him. His parents looked stupefied by the man's presence too. I remembered that Liam or his family never really saw him, so something popped up in my mind and I padded towards him. My eyes were glaring holes in his head as I hissed, telling him to go away and pretend as if he doesn't know us. But my father seemed not to care about me or my words, as he shrugged his shoulders and walked past me. The murmurs of our relatives getting louder. They all knew, of course, he disappeared. How can I even think that this could be kept from Liam ever? Hidden. The old man had quite a bad reputation after all, and known for his low acts and running away, just leaving us alone. I had no idea I would even see him ever again. After all, he was the one who abandoned us. I couldn't contemplate how he even knew about our presence here. All I knew was he ruined my mood and party, and I wasn't letting him off the hook so easily this time. Update number 2. I just remember how dumbfounded Liam was the day that, we heard words that the man named George, the uninvited guest, was my father. He was looking at me, his eyes full of questions and serious confusion. I had no idea how to deal with the situation at hand. I had told him my father died, and now that he was standing all healthy on his limbs in front of us, does that make me a liar? I had no time to think anymore, as my dad started talking and telling everyone he was my father, and he was here to see my newborn baby. I watched him go towards the baby, but Liam stopped him. I knew he was going to punch him. The way Liam clenched his jaws, eyes boring holes in my just dad's head, I was sure a fight was going to erupt soon, so I had to intervene. I started telling the man to leave, but he was adamant about not leaving until we let him meet his grandchild. My blood boiled hearing his nonsense, but before I could react, Liam started asking me what it was all about. I could feel his parents' face was upset too. Unwillingly, I had to admit the truth. I watched my boyfriend's face change as he listened to me. I'm sure he was angry or upset at me for lying, so now that the cat was finally out the bag, I decided to unveil the full truth and nothing but the truth. I told him about my dad running away with his lottery money, leaving us alone. I could hear unanimous gasps again in the background, though most people already knew about it, so it wasn't that big of a surprise. My father started yelling and denying everything, calling us a liar and making all sorts of dumb excuses. It was only when my mother interfered that he shut up. I watched my mother cursing and yelling at the man for the first time in his life, asking him to leave us all alone. I watched her yell and let everyone know his pathetic deeds, and watched how everyone started whispering amongst themselves and bad-mouthing the man. Liam's parents started avoiding me. They pushed him to leave me, but thankfully he didn't. It took me a lot of convincing to make them understand my stance, which I knew they still weren't aware of. Regardless, he successfully ruined the day and my baby's first ever party, and I knew I wasn't going to let him go without paying for it. I watched him go, and then of course everyone was there to gossip about whatever happened. Everybody seriously had a lot to say, but all I knew was what my boyfriend and his family had to say about it. I looked around to see my baby and noticed he was held securely by Sasha and her boyfriend, who were trying to calm the baby. Of course the baby was stressed because of all the yelling and loud voices. And I knew I had a lot of explaining to do to my boyfriend as well. Update number 3. Hey guys, so it's been a few days since the party, or should I say the failed party. When Liam brought up the issue, it caused a whole drama. Liam's mother lost her temper and started throwing indirect jabs at how people with a family like mine are mostly lunatics. Her comments triggered my mom and a huge fight broke out. Both the women fight and throw insults at each other, and his mother was so mad that she threw whatever she had bought for the baby and stomped away cursing at us. I could only watch it all happen. It was around noon. I was with Liam and Mom. Liam had come over to talk about what happened earlier and make peace. We were still figuring out and discussing what happened earlier when the bell rang and Mom went to open the door. We were still with the baby when we heard yelling, shouts, and heavy footsteps. And there he was, my dad, standing there. Again, Liam stood up angrily and stopped him by holding his hand. I barked, questioning my father about what he was doing here. His answer just made us all mad. He talked about how he's still the half-owner and it's his house too. Mother lost it. Started pushing him, crying and telling him, "You better leave." Liam had enough and marched towards him. Well, pushed him out the house himself and just sits there and watches him drag him outside. My father didn't leave immediately. He was constantly shouting, and I'm sure the neighbors might be wondering what was happening in our house. He started throwing stones at our door like the insane guy he was. Liam came back after shutting the door and plopped on the couch as we heard our father yell at the door, before finally going away. He might have finally lost it, guys. Update number 4. After that day, it became routine. My father would show up, cause a ruckus, yell all kinds of things at us, and call us tyrants for not letting him see his grandchildren. It all started with him coming continually to our house, banging on the door like a madman. The first time it happened, we got pretty scared and almost called the cops. The second time, he was the one who threatened to call the cops if he wouldn't be allowed inside. I remember our neighbors all coming out to see what kind of drama was happening. We were warned to settle things quietly as a lot complained about us affecting their peace too. So, unfortunately, we had to give up for the time being, and had to let him enter. The moment he entered the house, he started going around trying to find my baby. Mom and I were the only ones home, and I couldn't help but feel shivers through my body seeing him searching for my child. He tried to pick him up, but I immediately held him and tried to protect him. My mom got in the way, so when he latched out, amid the panic, she picked up a table lamp and threw it at him. The loud shattering noise of glass made the baby cry out loud while I flinched. Fortunately, he was not injured at all. I was scared we would be charged for harming him at this point. He looked at us in such a way that made me believe he wasn't here just to see the baby, but the dangerous spark in his eyes indicated something else. I knew there was no way I was ever letting him near my baby. We heard the front door opening and Liam walked in. His eyes almost popped out of his shell noticing the broken glass. Without even listening to us, Liam punched that man in the jaw so hard that he stumbled back and fell. I ran upstairs to put the baby in the nursery to avoid any ugly situation that could occur, and then tried to stop him with my own bare hands. Well, he wasn't listening to us, but then I had to yell at him, reminding him that we were doing nothing but making his case stronger. In case he sues us, that is. Liam finally stopped and my father scurried away, throwing profanities at us. After that moment, we barely had time to breathe. We conclude the best would be for us to move out. We started looking out for good houses to buy. Mom and Sasha were going to stay with us until they would figure things out by themselves. It took us a few painful weeks to find a good home. On the last day we were moving out, we took legal action against our father too. We sent him a notice, demanded my mom's share of the house, and also sued him for child negligence. Throughout the time period the case was heard, we received calls where he would threaten to beat us, break our bones and whatnot. We provided it as evidence too, and after many struggles, we won the case. My father was charged a lot for child negligence. Threatening and being abusive towards my mother, and his previous criminal history proved to be really beneficiary for us. He was made to pay the fine, and a restraining letter was given to him that if he ever was seen anywhere near us, he would be arrested. After that day, I never saw his face again. Not like I desired to. Rather than getting the shares from the house, we heard from his lawyer that he would be willing to sell it since he ran out of money and can't afford to live there anyways. So, we paid for the house and got its ownership, and Mom didn't have to struggle anymore. My father never appeared in our life again, and we were, heard a few years later that he started doing drugs, and he passed away from an overdose. Not once I felt sad about it, and I was happy that man who tormented us for years was finally gone, and we could live our lives in peace. We finally got rid of the devil. I just kept feeling worse and worse for OP, having to deal with this situation, but all I can say is thank goodness at the end of the story, it looks like the father got what he finally deserved. A little taste of karma, being sent to prison. Guys, I would love to hear your opinion on this story. What'd you think of it? Have you ever been involved in a situation like this? Share your comments down below. I want to thank you for joining me on today's content, and if you are new to the channel, make sure you press that subscribe button, as it is one of the best ways to support me, and I really appreciate that. Guys, have a fantastic day. I will see you tomorrow in another set of stories, so until then, so long.